At the end of the 19th century, the Kingdom of Benin had retained its independence during the scramble for Africa, and the Oba of Benin exercised a monopoly over trade in Benin's territories, which the Royal Niger Company considered a threat. In 1892, Deputy Commissioner and Vice Consul Captain Henry Lionel Gawe tried to negotiate a trade agreement with the Oba of Onrawen Nobaisi 1888 to 1914 to allow for the free passage of goods through his territory and the development of the palm oil industry. Captain Gawe, as his name was then spelled, pushed for British interest in the region, especially of the palm oil industry, by attempting to negotiate a free trade agreement with the Oba at the time. Later, urged the Foreign Office to use whatever means to secure the signed treaty up to and including force. Gawe signed a treaty with the Oba and his chiefs which gave Britain legal justification for asserting greater influence in the region. The Oba was hesitant to sign the treaty. After the British consul Richard Burton visited Benin in 1862, he described it a place of gratuitous barbarity which stinks of death, a narrative which was publicized in Britain and increased pressure for the territories' incorporation into the British Empire. The treaty itself does not explicitly mention anything about the bloody customs that Burton had written about, and instead includes a vague clause about ensuring the general progress of civilization. While the treaty granted free trade to British merchants operating in the Kingdom of Benin, the Oba persisted in requiring custom duties, since Major Sir Claude Maxwell MacDonald, the Consul General of the Oyo River Protectorate Authorities, considered the treaty legal and binding. He deemed the Oba's requirements a violation of the accord and thus a hostile act. Some historians have suggested that humanitarian motivations were driving British foreign policy in the region. Others, such as Philip Ibafe, consider that the annexation of Benin was driven largely by economic designs. The treaty itself did not mention any goal that removed the bloody customs that Burton had written about. In 1894, after the capture of Ebrohimi, the trading town of the chief Nana Olomu, the leading Isekri leader in the Benin River district, by a combined Royal Navy and Niger Coast Protectorate force, the Kingdom of Benin increased the military presence on its own southern borders. These developments, combined with the colonial office refusal to grant approval for an invasion of Benin City, scuttled an expedition the Protectorate had planned for early 1895. Even so, between September 1895 and mid-1896, 3 attempts were made by the Protectorate to enforce the Gawe Treaty of 1892. Firstly, by Major P. Copeland Crawford, Vice Consul of the Benin District, secondly by Frederick Locke, the Vice Consul Assistant, and thirdly by Captain Arthur Mollem, Commandant of the Niger Coast Protectorate Force Detachment based in Sapele. In March 1896, following price fixing and refusals by Isekri middlemen to pay the required tributes, the Oba of Benin ordered the cessation of the supply of oil palm produce to them. The trade embargo brought trade in the Benin River region to a standstill. The British merchants in the region appealed to the Protectorate's Consul General to open up Benin territories and to send the Oba, whom they claimed was an obstruction to their trading activities, into exile. In October 1896, the acting Consul General James Robert Phillips visited the Benin River district and met with agents and traders who convinced him that there is future on the Benin River if Benin territories were opened. The Benin Massacre, January 1897. In November 1896, Phillips, the vice consul of a trading post on the African coast, decided to meet with the Oba in Benin City in regards to the trade agreement that the Oba had made with the British, but was not keeping. He formally asked his superiors in London for permission to visit Benin City, claiming that the cost of such an expedition would be recouped by trading for ivory. In late December 1896, without waiting for a reply or approval, Phillips embarked on an expedition comprising James Robert Phillips, acting Consul General, Niger Coast Protectorate, Major Copeland Crawford, Vice Consul of the Benin and Warri districts, An Unbiased, Commandant of the Constabulary of the Niger Coast Protectorate, Cap Mullen, Niger Coast Protectorate Force, Dr. Elliot, Medical Officer for Sapele and Benin District, Dr. Ralph Locke, District Commissioner of Warri, Mr. Kenneth Campbell, District Commissioner at Sapele, Mr. Gordon, Trader, African Association, Mr. Swanson, Trader of Mr. Pinnock's firm, Mr. Powis, Agent for Milers Brothers Palm Oil at Old Calabar, Mr. Leon, Assistant District Commissioner at Sapele, Waited Guato, Mr. Badu of Accra Gold Coast Consul General's Clerk and Photographer, Mr. Jumbo, Consul General Orderly and Civil Policeman, Mr. Vice Consul's Orderly and Civil Policeman, Mr. Towe, Local Interpreter, Mr. Herbert Clark, Local Interpreter, Mr. Basili, Local Benin Guide, Jim Bosragon, Crew Manservant, Local Jackery Porters to carry their supplies, food, trade goods, presents, cameras, and tents, Crew Laborers. Philip has sent a message to the Oba claiming that his present mission was to discuss trade and peace and demanding admission to the territory. Ahead of Philip's, he has sent an envoy bearing numerous gifts for trade. It was during this time that the Oba was celebrating Igbo festival, and he sent word that he did not wish to see the British at the time, and he would send word in a month or two when he was ready to receive just Phillips and one Jackery chief. On 14 January 1897, Phillips and his entire party was ambushed along their journey to Benin City at Uwine village near Gwato. British officers and African porters were slaughtered. Only 2 British survived their wounds, An Unbiased and Ralph Locke, within the week. News had made it to London of the massacre. This event led to the mounting of the punitive expedition. As a result of this attack, the Foreign Office authorized military action leading to the punitive expedition. The purported intention by Moore: it is imperative that a most severe lesson be given the chiefs, kings, and juju men of all surrounding countries, that white men cannot be killed with impunity, and that human sacrifices with the oppression of the weak and poor must cease. According to historian Philip Ebafe, the humanitarian and punitive justifications given by Moore ran counter to the economic justification for military action that he and other members of the Protectorate administration promoted in the months and years before the events of February 1897. The 2 British that survived the annihilation of Philip's expedition, which became known as the Benin Massacre, were Captain An Unbiased, Commandant of the Constabulary of the Niger Coast Protectorate, who had been shot in the right arm and knee, and Ralph Locke, District Commissioner of Warri, who had been shot 4 times in the arm and once in the hip. On 12 January 1897, Rear Admiral Harry Rawson, commander of the Royal Navy forces at the Cape of Good Hope and west coast of African Station, was appointed by the Admiralty to lead a force to invade the Kingdom of Benin and capture the Benin Oba. The operation was named the Benin Punitive Expedition. On 9 February 1897, the invasion of the Kingdom of Benin began. The British invasion force of about 1,200 Royal Marines, sailors, and Niger Coast Protectorate forces was organized into 3 columns: the Saboba, Guato, and main columns. Flotillas of warship, including HMS Philomel and Fuebe, and gunboats approaching Benin City from the east and west. The Saboba and main columns reached Benin City after 10 days of fighting. The Guato column under Captain Gawe took the same route as that taken by the previous mission and came on the scene of the massacre, finding headless bodies of the victims. Expert Huxley spent some time researching in Benin in 1954 and wrote, "To hear an account of the Benin massacre of 1897, an e-sequel from one who had taken part, it is a story that still has power to amaze and horrify, as well as to remind us that the British had motives for pushing into Africa other than the intention to exploit the natives and glorify themselves." Here, for instance, are some extracts from the diary of a surgeon who took part in the expedition. As we neared Benin City, we passed several human sacrifices. Live women, slaves, gagged and pegged on their backs to the ground, the abdominal wall being cut in the form of a cross, and the uninjured gut hanging out. These poor women were allowed to die like this in the sun. Men slaves with their hands tied at the back and feet lashed together, also gagged, were lying about. As we neared the city, sacrificed human beings were lying in the path and bush, even in the king's compound. The sight and stench of them was awful. Dead and mutilated bodies were everywhere. By God, may I never see such sights again. Herbert Walker, a soldier serving in the punitive expedition, believed that the human sacrifices in store were an attempt by Benin city residents to appease the gods as they tried to defend themselves from the expedition. According to the professor of African Studies, Robin Law, the issue of human sacrifices is an extremely sensitive one and prone to bias. Law suggests that the reported extent of the practice in Benin was exaggerated by the British in order to establish the need for military intervention. Historian Dan Hicks has described the punitive expedition action during the push to Benin City as democidal, claiming that it involved massacres of towns and villages from the air, and thus women and children across the whole of Benin Kingdom, scorching the earth with rockets, fire and mines. Primary among the war cries was the scale of the killing and bombings of the civilian targets. On 18 February, Benin City was captured by the expedition in spite of its defensive area. The city was set ablaze, although it has been claimed that this was accidental. 8 members of the punitive force were recorded as being killed in action. During the Benin expedition, the number of military and civilian casualties among the Benin people was not estimated, but it is thought to have been very high. The Benin expedition was described as such. In 29 days, a force of 1,200 men, coming from 3 places between 3,000 and 4,500 miles from the Benin River, was landed, organized, equipped, and provided with transport. 5 days later, the city of Benin was taken, and in 12 days more, the men were embarked and the ships coaled and ready for further service. All in all, around 5,000 men were mobilized for the expedition, which took place over 3 weeks. Aftermath. After the capture of Benin City, houses, sacred sites, ceremonial buildings, and places of many high-ranking chiefs were looted, and many buildings were burned down, including the palace building itself. On Sunday, 21 February, there was evidence of previous human sacrifice found by members of the expedition, with journalists from Reuters and the Illustrated London News reporting that the town reeked of human blood. Inside the abandoned palace, a terrible sight was revealed to the British. The Oba, in panic of what he had done and in fear of retaliatory attack, had embarked in a great mass of human sacrifice in order to stave off full disaster. Bodies of those sacrificed by the Oba laid in peace, and many hung crucified in trees. The Oba was eventually captured by the British Consul General Ralph Moore, deposed and exiled with 2 of his 80 wives to Calabar. A British resident was appointed and 6 chiefs were hanged in Benin City's marketplace. Most of the plunder from the city was returned by the expedition, with some 2,500 official figures, religious artifacts, Benin visual history, mnemonics and artworks being sent to Britain. They include over 1,000 metal plaques and sculptures collectively known as the Benin Bronzes. Admiralty confiscated and auctioned off the war booty to defray the cost of the expedition. About 40% of the art was accessioned to the British Museum, while other works were given to individual members of the armed forces as spoils of war, and the remainder was sold at auction by the Admiralty to pay for the expedition as early as May 1897.